Hey guys, I'm Sheri Vegas, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you the beginner's guide to creating your own resin jewelry. So you're going to need a few items to start with. You're going to need gloves, your colors, your molds for your resin jewelry, paddle pop sticks, measuring cups, the type of resin that you'll be using. Today I'm using the Easycast resin from Barnes, and this is their white setting resin, and also some safety gear as gloves, masks, goggles and safety clothing, because we are working with a polyurethane resin, so we do have to be careful while we're working with it. As I said before, we'll be using the Easycast resins from Barnes. This resin is a great resin to use for jewelry making, as it is a 1-to-1 ratio, which makes it easy to measure, and it is also incredibly fast setting resin. The first technique that I'm going to show you today is how to do one solid color with your resin jewelry. I've poured my parts equally, so I have part A and part B in separate cups. Then I've added my color that I'm going to be using to one of the parts first and combine that thoroughly. Then once I'm happy with that being combined, I then add my next part and I combine both of those together. You want to mix really fast because this is a fast setting resin. You've got about 2 minutes working time with it before it starts to set. The reason why I add a colour to one of the parts first before combining both A and B of the resin is because it gives me a bit of extra time to really work that colour through. If I was to add it in after I've mixed A and B together, I've already activated the setting process, which gives me less time to make sure that colour gets mixed thoroughly through my resin. The second technique that I'm going to be showing you is how to create a really cool swirl of colour through your resin jewelry, kind of like a marbling effect. So I start off the same way by measuring my parts equally of part A and B of my resin. Then before I add colour, I mix both of them together, combining them thoroughly. Make sure you really scrape around the sides and make sure the whole resin is combined thoroughly, because if it is not, it won't set correctly. Once I'm happy with how it has combined together, I'm then going to add a few drops of my colour. The colour I'm using today is Tangerine from Barnes, and it is suitable for polyurethane resin. I've just added a few drops in and then just use my paddle pop stick to give it a light swirl. You do not want to mix your colour into your resin, because then that will take away from the effect. Then I just pour my resin into my bangle mould at a slow and steady stream, trying not to mix the colours too much. I like to fill it right up to the top of my mould, but not overflowing, because this will make it easier to clean up later on. Because this is a fast setting resin, it only takes a few minutes for it to start to harden, and you'll actually see it hardening in front of your eyes and changing colours, because we are using a white based resin. You'll know when your resin jewelry items are ready to demold, because the mold will no longer feel hot. So while it is setting, it actually heats up quite a lot, and it will be hot to touch the outside. You'll know when you're ready to pull it out of the mold when it's no longer warm. This takes around half an hour. When choosing your molds, a little tip is to go for nice thick silicone molds. The reason why we use silicone when working with resin is because silicone won't stick to resin, and that means you can then pull it out once it has set. And the reason why you want to pick thick ones is so you don't break your molds too easily. So I really do like these molds from Barnes because they are nice and thick, and they come in all shapes and sizes for any jewelry style you would like. So I have a question for you guys, and please feel free to leave it in the comment box below. But are there any tutorials that you would like to see me do to do with resin art or any style of artwork or DIY? Please let me know so I can create those content for you. Once your molds have cooled down, you are ready to demold your bangle. This can be easy or hard depending on the shape of your mold. The deeper it is, the harder it is to pull them out, so sometimes you do have to use a little bit of elbow grease to get them out. I find like quite big, deep bangles are the hardest to get out, but these ones were pretty easy. You just want to make sure that you go around all the edges and then just pop them out, being a little bit careful because they might be still a little bit soft. With resin jewelry, you always have one good side and one bad side. The good side being the resin that was poured into the mold, and then on the other side, you just need to make sure you clean up any sharp edges that you might have gotten. I just like to use some wet and dry sandpaper, a really fine grain, just to clean up any of the little sharp edges. I'm pretty lucky on this one because it was pretty good to start with, and then just go the whole way around. The reason why I'm using water with sanding is because I don't want to get any resin dust around, and using water helps stop resin dust flying in the air. Make sure you also wear goggles and a mask when doing this process, because the last thing you want is to breathe in some resin dust. As I sand my bangle, I just like to go around and feel it with my fingers to make sure I'm getting rid of any sharp edges, because obviously I do not want to be wearing this and getting spiked or cut, because resin can get quite sharp. So just use your fingers and have a feel and make sure the edges are really soft. The last step that I like to do is just give the side that I did do the sanding on a little coat with some resin spray, just to make sure it's nice and glossy. And here you go, here are the two finished items. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. If you liked it, please give it a big thumbs up. And if you're new to my channel, make sure you subscribe, because I post different DIY tutorials all the time. Thank you.